Hey everyone, and welcome to the show. Have you ever felt like your work life and your love life are just like all tangled up in one giant mess? Like the person who signs your paycheck also happens to be giving you butterflies.
It's so interesting how those two worlds colliding can really throw everything off balance.
Yeah.
Like suddenly you're forced to deal with situations you never even imagined.
Oh,
Right.
totally. And that's exactly what we're going to be unpacking today. We're diving deep into a contemporary romance novel that's full of fun workplace dynamics and a touch of humor along the way. If that sounds right up your alley, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of our future deep dives. Okay, so today we're taking a closer look at Off the Record by Kasey Stockton. You can find the link to the book on Amazon down in the description below if you want to check it out. Now, at first glance, it seems like a light and breezy read, but there are some deeper themes at play here, like the pressures of a changing workplace, those unexpected connections that can really catch you off guard, and, the messy reality of trying to move on from past relationships. But don't worry, we'll be careful not to spoil any major plot points for you. All right, so let's meet our leading lady, Paisley McConkey.
Right away, what strikes you about Paisley is that her day is already a complete disaster before she even makes it to the office.
Yeah.
I mean, can you even imagine how you would feel if everything just went wrong like that first thing in the morning?
Ugh, it's the worst. No deodorant, no Cheerios, a flat tire on the I-65 off-ramp, which totally ruins her cream slacks. And to make matters worse, her phone is dead.
It's almost comical, but this is all happening on the same day that her ex, Leo Davis, the office photographer slash travel columnist, is coming back to the Nashville rhythm after being away for 2 months. And let's not forget, this is the same guy who, had a little off-the-record fling with Kyla from advertising 6 months ago. So, yeah, the awkward tension is palpable.
It's interesting, right? Even with all the personal chaos going on the flat tire, the dread of seeing her ex Paisley's thoughts actually drift back to her old job at Music City Monthly. What do you think that says about her current work environment? It says a lot, doesn't it? I mean, her old boss was, well, let's just say he was incredibly inappropriate. But the fact that she almost wishes she was back there, that kind of tells you that the stress and discomfort she's anticipating at the Nashville Rhythm must be a whole new level of awful. At least her old editor hadn't totally betrayed her trust like that. It makes you realize that sometimes even a bad situation can feel more comfortable than facing something new and unknown.
Totally. It's that human tendency to stick with what we know, even if it's not the best. It also shows just how strong Paisley is that she actually chose to leave that toxic workplace.
Yeah.
And now she's up against a different kind of challenge.
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting. As Paisley's struggling with that stubborn lug nut, who do you think stops to help her? It's none other than her boss's boss, Hudson Owens. The executive level guy who used to manage the Nashville Tribune.
This is a really pivotal moment in the story. I mean, Hudson Owens isn't just some random coworker. He's like the top dog at the company.
Yeah.
What do you make of him stopping to help her?
Paisley is absolutely shocked. Not just that he helped, but that he actually remembered her name from a meeting about potential staff cuts. And that little detail about the paper struggling with low readership, it instantly brings in that whole element of job insecurity. It's that feeling of not knowing if you're going to have a job tomorrow.
Absolutely. It
Yep.
makes the whole situation so much more intense. And then there's Hudson's public image. He's like Nashville's most eligible bachelor, known for working crazy hours, being in all the society pages, and practically living at the gym. Paisley even jokes to herself that he might be a vampire. It's funny. Have you ever had those kinds of lighthearted thoughts about the higher-ups at your job?
Oh, for sure. It's kind of a way to deal with the power imbalance, I think. Anyway, Hudson, this super put-together executive, manages to loosen the lug nut with no problem. But poor Paisley is mortified because his fancy suit pants are totally ruined. It's like a classic meet-cute scene, but with this awkward professional twist.
It totally sets up the power dynamic between them from the start. But you also see a bit of vulnerability from Hudson, like he's not afraid to get his hands dirty. And Paisley's embarrassment just shows how down-to-earth she is. What do you think this first encounter foreshadows about their relationship?
Okay, so fast forward to Paisley finally making it to the Nashville Rhythm office. And she looks a little rough around the edges, let's just say that. Andrea at the front desk, who always notices everything, immediately points out that Leo is back. And then, of course, the office rumor mill starts churning, apparently. The current boss, Ben, got into a bar fight and might not be coming back. It makes you think that this workplace was already a bit chaotic even before all the big changes started happening. Have you ever worked in a place where gossip was like a constant background noise?
It's so common, right? And all that uncertainty can really make people anxious. Then there's that Slack notification,
Yeah.
the one for the urgent meeting at 9 a.m. sharp. Simone, who's Paisley's closest friend at work, pulls her aside right away. She's worried about how Paisley looks and about this whole new boss situation. We also find out that Simone doesn't really trust Andrea, who's basically the queen of office gossip. It makes you wonder if anything Andrea says is actually true.
Totally. And then Andrea drops this cryptic comment about the new boss being even better. Like, what does that even mean? It just adds to the whole feeling of unease. So the whole team is gathered in the conference room, and Dalton, the head of formatting, is leading the meeting. He's quite the character, by the way. Anyway, he confirms that Ben isn't coming back and announces that the company is in this crucial stage of a revitalization project. And then, as if on cue, Hudson Owens walks in, apologizing for being late because of, you guessed it, trouble on the road this morning. Did you catch that little bit of irony?
It's brilliant. And I'm sure Paisley noticed it too. Then comes the big announcement. Dalton introduces Hudson as the interim boss. He's taking a break from being the marketing chief to lead the Nashville Rhythm for now. He also mentions being on the review committee that analyzed the paper, which is basically code for we're deciding who to fire. Let's be real. Then he says he wants the transition to be smooth and announces they'll all have individual interviews that same day to discuss their current projects. And of course, Leo immediately jumps in, trying way too hard to seem excited.
Leo's a little too eager, don't you think? It definitely reminds you of all the things Paisley went through with him before. Hudson ends the meeting pretty quickly, and everyone's left scrambling to get ready for these last-minute interviews. Simone's reaction is perfect. She just goes, "What was that?" It sums up how everyone's feeling, I think. And poor Paisley is left wondering if her horrible morning was just a sign of worse things to come, like maybe losing her job. It's that awful feeling of not knowing what's going to happen to your career.
Totally stressful. Then Simone tries to cheer her up by saying that maybe going first will give Paisley an edge. It's like a little bit of workplace strategy coming into play. What do you think of her advice?
It's a good friend move, trying to make the best of a bad situation. Then Simone gives Paisley the lowdown on Hudson's reputation. Apparently he's a bit of a ladies' man, fired a bunch of people from the Tribune when he was the editor-in-chief, and his receptionist's desk is basically a revolving door of short-term girlfriends. Simone even jokes that maybe he'll try to conquer Paisley next. That's quite the image they're painting of him. What's your first impression of Hudson?
He sounds ambitious professionally, but maybe not so great in the relationship department. Definitely raises some red flags for Paisley. Makes you wonder what his true intentions are.
Paisley brushes it off, though. She's like, oh, he probably goes for tall, gorgeous models, not average, frizzy-haired writer nerds like her. It's self-deprecating, but it also shows how insecure she feels, especially compared to someone like Hudson. Have you ever found yourself comparing yourself to others like that?
Oh, totally. We all do it, especially when we're feeling a bit vulnerable. So Paisley heads off to her interview in Ben's old office, which is now Hudson's office, of course. And guess what? Hudson's already there. The way the book describes his eyes lingering on her face and hair, you can practically feel the shift in the atmosphere.
It's intense, and then he asks her to close the door, which Leo obviously notices through the glass window and gets all suspicious. The way Hudson focuses on her is described as heavy, which really gives you a sense of how charged the moment is. But despite all this, Paisley is determined to fight for her job. That kind of drive is something a lot of us can relate to, I think.
Absolutely. You can really see her determination. She starts pitching her ideas, mostly holiday-themed articles and family-friendly stuff. But then Hudson throws a curveball. He's looked at her recent column numbers, and, well, those clicks are pretty low. He starts talking about how they need to shake things up, bring in some fresh voices, and find a new direction for the paper. He's basically hinting that her family-focused angle might be a little outdated. But then he brings up her current article, the one that actually did really well. What do you think about that feedback?
It's definitely mixed signals. He's not totally shutting her down, but he's making it clear that things need to change. And the fact that he brought up the content article specifically feels important. They even talk about why it was so successful. Paisley thinks it was because of the history angle, but Hudson kind of steers her away from that, like maybe there was something else that made it work. He also mentions that websites like TripAdvisor and Google already have all the basic tourist information covered, so he's looking for something that will really grab people's attention. And then he gives her the assignment. 2 profiles by the end of the week, which he calls an experiment. He even offers to help her brainstorm different angles, saying something like, whatever you need, I'm at your disposal. It feels like more than just a boss helping an employee, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah. He seems a little too invested in her work for someone who's just the interim boss. It makes you wonder if he's interested in her for more than just professional reasons.
And then he drops a bomb. He says they're thinking about letting go of 2 columnists. And then he adds, I really like your voice, Paisley. I'd like to keep you on. And then, as if things weren't already complicated enough, he suggests she call him Hudson if she's going to call him Paisley. And then he brings up the flat tire again and offers to send his guy to fix it. It's like this whirlwind of professional assessment mixed with some pretty intense personal attention. Paisley leaves the office totally flustered, and Hudson's parting words, I look forward to working with you. It's all very loaded, wouldn't you say? What are your thoughts on that whole interview?
It's this strange mix of professional evaluation and a budding personal connection. Hudson's definitely checking out Paisley's work, but he's going above and beyond what a normal boss would do. It sets the stage for a really complicated dynamic between them. Back at her desk, Simone's obviously dying to know what happened. She's just relieved Paisley didn't get fired. Paisley tells her that her column is just changing to human interest pieces. I think that vagueness reflects her own confusion about what Hudson actually wants from her.
Yeah, she's definitely not sure what to make of it all. Then she sees Hudson talking to Andrea, the receptionist, and she has this funny thought about writing an article titled, How to Drop an Office Relationship with Minimal Fallout. Classic Paisley. Meanwhile, Leo's still watching her like a hawk. So Paisley and Simone do what any good work friends would do. They send each other secret Slack messages about ignoring Leo and about Simone's Tinder date that night. I love those little details. They really bring the office setting to life. Have you ever had a work friend who was like that for you? Someone you could vent to and get advice from? Oh, definitely. It's so important to have that kind of support system at work. So now the pressure is on for Paisley to come up with these human interest profile ideas. She brainstorms for hours, but nothing seems to click. So she decides to go with Simone to the Whiskey Sage bar to be her moral support for her date. But then she strikes up a conversation with Tina, the bartender, who starts talking about all the famous musicians who have played there, like Carolina Blue. And boom, Paisley gets an idea, an article about the bar itself and its history. It shows that she can find inspiration in the most unexpected places, just like her mom always said. Everyone has a story. If we sit and listen, we'll learn something new. Have you ever had one of those light bulb moments come from a random conversation?
All the time. And then things get even more interesting because Paisley starts getting texts from a number she doesn't recognize. The first one says, making any progress. And then later she finds out it's Hudson. He even sends a text saying, I realize it's only been a day. This is Hudson Owens, by the way. Like, the boss is checking up on her work after hours. That's definitely crossing a line, don't you think? Oh, yeah, it's a bit much. It shows he's really interested in what she's doing, maybe even a little too interested. Paisley manages to get Tina's number to ask her more questions about the bar, and she ends up writing a rough draft of the Whiskey Sage article late that night. She even texts Hudson about another idea, a piece about the Country Music Hall of Fame. But his response is kind of lukewarm. He tells her to table that one, and then later says, I have faith he'll come up with something better. So many mixed signals. What do you make of that?
It's so hard to tell what he's really thinking. He's trying to be encouraging, but he's also steering her away from an idea she seemed excited about. It keeps her guessing, and us too. The next morning at the office is filled with more awkward moments. Leo tries to talk to Paisley by the elevators and then again in the kitchen. He keeps saying he wants to clear the air. But just as things are getting really uncomfortable, who shows up? Hudson. And he asks Paisley if she's ready for our meeting. That hour is doing a lot of work, don't you think?
It does. It sounds like he's claiming ownership over her time and her projects. He wants to see the rough draft of her article, and Paisley hesitantly tells him about her past relationship with Leo. Hudson even notices how uncomfortable Leo is, saying his body language is equivalent to that of a cornered animal. He's pretty observant. He even offers to help Paisley get away from Leo, suggesting she pretend to have another meeting. So they start going over the Whiskey Sage article, but Hudson's still not sold on the band angle. He's pushing her to think outside the box and find a more unique and compelling story. Have you ever had a boss who was like that, always challenging you to do better?
It can be tough, but if it leads to better work, it's worth it in the end, right? Then Hudson brings up her flat tire again, and he admits that this new job is actually harder than he expected. He even confesses that he really hates the idea of having to let people go. He asks Paisley to send him any rough ideas she has so they can brainstorm together, and he tells her again, I really like your voice, Paisley. I'd like to keep you on. But then the question pops up, is he saying that to everyone? His answer is pretty vague. He says, I'm doing what I think is best for the paper. It doesn't really ease her worries, does it?
It's the kind of answer that doesn't really give you a straight answer, you know. And then to make things even more awkward, who walks in? Kyla. And she gives Paisley this smug little smile. Later, back at their desks, Simone wants all the juicy details about the meeting, but Paisley just says she needs to find a new direction for her column. The office is like a breeding ground for anxiety and secret crushes, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. So the next week is a bit of a roller coaster for Paisley. She pitches idea after idea to Hudson, but he keeps shooting them down. She even considers writing about this woman she sees all the time at Hattie B's, her go-to dinner spot. She's getting really frustrated, which you can see in her Slack messages with Simone. Simone gives her some great advice, though she tells her to go micro and just write about what she's personally interested in. Even Andrea, the office gossip, chimes in with some observations about Hudson. She says he's working like crazy and hints that he's going through some stuff. She even mentions that he has no friends and a super empty social calendar. This is what prompts Paisley to do something really impulsive. She asks Hudson if he wants to go for drinks with her and some coworkers. What did you think of her inviting him out like that?
That's a bold move, especially considering their history. What Andrea said about him definitely makes him seem more human, like maybe he's lonely underneath it all. Hudson takes forever to answer her, which just adds to the suspense. So Paisley goes back to the office expecting a group hangout, but the office is empty. Except for Hudson, who's in the conference room on a phone call ordering food. And get this, he specifically mentions no allergies for Paisley. He's raving about the food from his friend Pete's restaurant. And then he drops a bomb he's been researching all the staff members for weeks, even before that first meeting about the columns. That's a level of planning that Paisley had no idea about.
Right, makes you wonder what his original intentions were. He also admits that he didn't expect Ben to leave so suddenly, which meant he ended up having to make more decisions than he anticipated. And then he says something really surprising. He says that the worst part of his job is having to let people go. When Paisley suggests the consultants could handle it, he says it's too impersonal. It shows that he actually cares about the people he works with. Then their conversation shifts to his role, changing from an executive position back to being an editor. He mentions that he's under a lot of pressure from his uncle because of some family drama. Hearing these little details about his personal life makes him seem more relatable, less like the untouchable boss. Have you ever found that knowing more about someone's personal life changes how you view them professionally?
Absolutely. It helps you understand their actions and motivations better. Hudson then suggests that Paisley could write about real locals for her column. It reminds Paisley of something her mother used to say, everyone has a story. If we sit and listen, we'll learn something new. It's such a good reminder that storytelling is all about human connection. And then, just like that, Ralph, the delivery guy, shows up with a ton of food pasta with blackened chicken, mushroom sourdough bread, and roasted asparagus. It sounds amazing. As they eat, they joke around about Hudson's friend Pete, who's apparently happily engaged, which is too bad for Paisley. And then Hudson admits that he really needs to prove himself to his uncle. Sharing this meal together feels like a real turning point in their relationship, don't you think?
I think so. It takes them beyond that strictly professional dynamic. Then, on Saturday morning, Hudson texts Paisley about doing some research for a story. Carrie, Paisley's sister, immediately starts teasing her about dating the boss. Paisley insists it's just for her column about regular local people. When Hudson arrives, looking all handsome in his casual clothes, there's this awkward but sweet exchange with Carrie before they head out to Franklin. Going on this little research trip together definitely blurs the lines between work and personal life, don't you think?
Definitely. The drive to Franklin sounds so peaceful. They're sharing coffee, having a nice chat. Paisley even admits to herself that she's starting to fall for his charm. Then they meet Linus, who owns this cute little boutique, and he tells them about his wife, who passed away. It's a really touching story, and it fits perfectly with Paisley's new focus on writing about real locals. Afterwards, they grab some ice cream. Paisley shares her childhood dream of being a news anchor, and Hudson talks about how his uncle influenced his career path. He even admits that he's enjoying being back in an editor role. Then he makes a confession. He says he might have been coming on a little strong with Paisley because he feels so much pressure to impress his uncle. Again, it all comes back to that family dynamic. It feels like they're really starting to connect on a deeper level by sharing these personal stories.
They are. Then Hudson suggests they go for a hike because Paisley had mentioned how much she loves the fall leaves. She agrees, but she can't help but wonder if this is how all his secretaries ended up falling for him. She's totally fighting her feelings for him while also trying to be realistic about his reputation. I think a lot of people can relate to that push and pull between attraction and caution.
It's such a classic dilemma. Back at the office, everyone's talking about the upcoming awards banquet. Paisley remembers Hudson mentioning it, and she's even done some social media stalking. She can't wait to see him all dressed up in a tux. Simone, on the other hand, has a huge crush on Phil from The Outdoors, who's nominated for an award, so they're planning to go together. And then, who shows up at Paisley's desk? Leo. He wants to know they're going to the banquet together, which brings back all those awkward memories from when they were dating.
Oh man, that's uncomfortable. But before things can get too weird, who arrives? You guessed it, Hudson. He announces that the food at the banquet is supposed to be incredible and that everyone should go, and then he specifically invites Paisley to come with him to his old office to get something. The elevator ride is super tense, and Hudson finally asks her straight out if Leo has been bothering her. Once they're in his old office, he gets even more direct. He asks, "Are you still pining?" Paisley tells him absolutely not, and finally explains why they broke up. Leo cheated on her. Hudson seems genuinely shocked that Ben didn't fire Leo after that. Then there's a really important moment. Paisley asks Hudson to keep the conversation confidential, saying she trusts him and considers him a friend. That's a huge step for their relationship, don't you think?
Absolutely. It shows how much she trusts him and how vulnerable she feels sharing this with him. Hudson agrees to keep it secret, although he admits he doesn't like that it happened. Paisley makes it clear that she's only going to the banquet to support Simone, not Leo. And then, out of the blue, Hudson asks her to be his date. His first reason is kind of awkward. He says it's to make Leo jealous, but then he rephrases it and says it's to show Leo that she's moved on, so we'll leave her alone. Despite all her doubts and everything she's feeling, Paisley agrees to go. She even admits to herself that part of her wants to go because she wants to be with him. As they're heading back to their floor, Paisley realizes that Hudson never actually took anything from his old office. It makes you think that the real reason he took her there was to have that conversation.
Totally. It was all a setup. So it's the night of the awards banquet, and Simone is giving Paisley the side-eye about this whole date situation. Paisley tries to convince her it's not a real date, but Simone isn't buying it. She can totally tell something's going on. At the banquet, there's open seating except for the executive tables. Paisley sees Hudson across the room looking super handsome in his tux, all that Instagram stalking paid off. Their eyes meet and he smiles at her. Simone spots Phil, and as they're going over to talk to him, Hudson walks up to Paisley. He's showering her with compliments and invites them to sit at his reserved table. He even takes her hand. That's a pretty public display of affection, don't you think?
It is. It definitely shows he's interested in her, at least in terms of appearances. And then, as if on cue, who shows up? Leo and Kyla. It's super awkward, but thankfully, it's a short and polite interaction. Hudson smoothly guides Paisley away from them. At the table, Simone ends up sitting with Phil, which is perfect for her. Hudson leans in and asks if Paisley is okay, and she assures him she's totally over Leo. Then he tells her that her website clicks have tripled since she started writing the new column, which is great news. But then things get a bit more complicated because 4 more people join them at the table. Hudson's uncle, Mr. Prescott, the woman he's with, and Hudson's parents. Meeting his family adds a whole new layer to everything, wouldn't you say?
For sure. It gives you a glimpse into his background and maybe some of the pressures he's facing from his family. The conversation at the table is pretty stilted, hinting at some family drama related to the company. Paisley, sensing the awkwardness, offers to go mingle with Simone and Phil. Hudson seems a little reluctant to let her go, though. Later on, Paisley finds Leo outside. He's bummed because he didn't win an award. They have a short but meaningful conversation that seems to bring some closure for Paisley. Then Andrea joins her outside, all excited because her date with Marty, the guy from Paisley's article, is going well. But then she drops a huge bomb. She says the paper is going under and everyone's getting fired. She even says she saw the list, and Paisley and Simone aren't on it. She also reveals that Hudson asked her to be his personal secretary earlier that week. Paisley can't believe that Hudson hasn't said anything to her about this. This revelation changes the whole mood of the evening.
It's a huge betrayal of trust, and it throws Paisley's entire future into question. When they get back inside, Paisley sees Hudson on the phone. He gets off the call and asks if she's ready to go. Later, at Hudson's penthouse, they finally have it out. Hudson tries to avoid the topic at first, talking about his family and stuff, but Paisley confronts him, saying she can't deal with another man lying to her. He swears he's not seeing anyone else, and then he makes a big confession he's liked her since that first meeting about the columns. He even admits that he used the articles as an excuse to spend more time with her and that he took the interim editor job partly to get closer to her. He says that asking her to the banquet was genuine. Then Paisley tells him what Andrea said. Hudson's face totally gives him away. She asks him point blank if her job was ever actually safe. And he admits that no one's job was safe. It's heartbreaking. Paisley leaves feeling hurt and betrayed. She must be going through so many emotions.
Totally devastating. For the next few days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Hudson sends Paisley caramel macchiatos every morning and keeps sending her messages on Slack asking her to come to his office. But Paisley makes excuses not to go. She tells Simone everything, and they start looking for new jobs. They even decide to use Hudson as a reference, which is surprising. Interestingly, Hudson doesn't come back to the office for the rest of Wednesday. Then, on a whim, Paisley follows Andrea up to the executive floor and sees Hudson. The elevator ride is super awkward. Hudson says he's not actually firing anyone, but just giving recommendations because the whole newspaper is folding. Later that day, Paisley texts Hudson, "What can I do to help?" He responds by inviting her over to his place. Do you think this is a sign that things are going to get better between them?
It could be. The fact that she reached out to him shows that she still cares, despite everything that's happened. So at Hudson's penthouse, he finally comes clean about everything. He explains how he was trying to save the rhythm from his uncle, who basically wanted to shut it down because he saw it as a failing part of the company. Hudson reveals that he was planning to recommend Paisley for a job at the Tribune, and she's still on that list. But he also admits that he didn't recommend Simone because she already has a successful advice column somewhere else. They spend the next few days working together, going over all the numbers to create a presentation for his uncle. They're basically trying to make one last effort to save the paper. On Friday, Hudson presents the proposal, leaving Paisley anxiously waiting to hear the outcome. He eventually goes up to the office rooftop, and that's where Paisley finds him. His uncle didn't fully agree to their plan, but he offered a compromise. The rhythm can stay open, but there will be major staff cuts, like a third of the employees. And Hudson has to become the managing editor. It's at this moment that Paisley realizes that Hudson was trying to protect her and Simone all along, even if his methods were a bit questionable.
It's definitely a complicated situation, but his intentions were good. Hudson asks Paisley if she believes he was looking out for her, and she admits that she wasn't completely honest with Simone either. That honesty seems to be the key to them moving forward. Then Hudson asks if she'll give him another chance, and she says yes. And then finally, they kiss. It feels like they've weathered a huge storm.
They have. Being able to communicate and understand each other's motivations is so important. The epilogue gives us a peek into their lives 6 months later. The rhythm is doing well, and Hudson is officially the managing editor. Paisley is still writing her People of Nashville column. Leo ended up going to the Tribune after the layoffs, and he and Kyla have broken up. Simone, Stan, and Andrea all stayed at the rhythm. And the biggest news, Hudson and Paisley are officially a couple, although they're keeping it quiet at work for now. They're planning to announce their relationship at a company lunch the following Friday. It's such a happy ending after all the drama.
Wow, what a story. It just goes to show how much our work lives and personal lives can get tangled up, often in ways we never expect.
It's really interesting how their initial interactions, even though they were full of tension and uncertainty, actually laid the foundation for their relationship. Makes you think about how those workplace connections can sometimes turn into something more, doesn't it?
Totally. So what were some of your favorite moments from our deep dive today? Could you relate to Paisley's struggles with her job and her relationships? What did you think of Hudson's methods and his interest in Paisley? Were you surprised by all the changes at the Nashville rhythm? This story brings up some thought-provoking questions, don't you think? Like, how much should we let our personal feelings influence our work lives? And how do we handle situations where trust is broken, both personally and professionally? We'd love to hear your thoughts on all this. Share your favorite moments from the story, any reactions you had to the twists and turns, and any similar experiences you might have had in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into Off the Record, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us. Thanks for joining us.